If you love a clam bake but don't have a beach nearby, don't worry. There's a new invention that could change everything. Potatoes and onions, fresh lobsters, steamed clams. It's a taste of New England in the heart of Southern California.
It's fantastic.
A traditional New England clam bake in every way. Except one. This feast was cooked in this.
I find that most of our guests think that this is the most unique method of barbecue they've ever seen.
Jane Chadburn, with the help of her daughters Alexis and Ann, run a catering company called the Clambakers.
You guys want to go get the red buckets, fill them with water, and get the squirt bottles full?
Sure, we'll be right back.
Jane began the company 20 years ago because she wanted to bring the tradition of New England clam baking to the backyards of Southern California without having to dig a big hole in the process.
Well, traditional clam bake, you dig a hole in the ground, and we can't do that in backyards.
And so Jane and her husband, through months of trial and error, designed the world's only above-ground portable clam baker.
And it took us about 8 months of steaming potatoes and lobsters and clams every weekend, trying to figure out a way that we could create this flavor above ground without having to dig a hole in the ground.
To begin, clam baker master, Barbecue Bob Murray, lights up 50 pounds of charcoal in the clam baker's custom-built metal base.
Make sure everything gets lit, because we want a real hot flame.
While the coals heat up, Barbecue Bob begins filling the food trays with tonight's feast.
At this point, what I'm going to do is stack the food in reverse order of cooking.
These trays are specially designed, too. They're built to stack on top of each other, and with the steel grate, they'll allow all the smoke from the bottom to reach the food on the top. Then come authentic New England clams.
Time for the lobsters.
They're from New England as well.
I'll have 4 total stacks, 2 trays with 8 and 2 trays with 7 today.
After Ann and Alexis bring the sliced potatoes and onions, the feast is ready to go on the fire. The first thing on the coals is the water pot. Putting it on is no mean trick. The 50 pounds of coals are so hot that each time Bob has to approach the fire, he has to have his 2 helpers spritz his legs to keep the heat down. After filling the pot with water, here is where the magic begins. Jane says the real flavor in an authentic New England clam bake isn't just the clams, it's in the seaweed. And yes, it's from the East Coast, too.
I really think the secret to our authentic New England clam bake is the seaweed. It really imparts a very unique flavor. We have tried using seaweed from the West Coast, but it's not the same. It's very different.
Bob packs in the seaweed while Jane spreads it around.
If we have a hole in the seaweed, it's just straight burning heat up to the food.
The next step is to stack the food trays.
Tuck lobster tails underneath so they don't burn.
And then the entire contraption gets wrapped in a tarp.
So we're just going to wrap it real tight, make sure that the heat stays in as best we can. All right, thermometer in. We don't touch it again for an hour and a half, and then we are done.
An hour and a half later, Jane's guests begin to arrive.
Hey, you guys! So glad you could come!
And just in time, while Jane's daughters begin serving, what else? New England clam chowder, Bob starts unwrapping the clam baker.
See if we're done.
Steam is everywhere, and the air is filled with an aroma only those on the eastern seaboard would recognize.
There you go.
There we go.
And then, finally, the moment everyone has been waiting for.
Hey, it's a clam bake. Come and get it.
Her guests dig in. The corn, potatoes, and onions have soaked up the seaweed, releasing a musky aroma that takes you right to the beach.
It was so good, just a complete meal.
The lobster is a beautiful red on the outside, tender and flavorful on the inside.
It's as good as New England ever was. This is really good lobster.
And the clams?
Fantastic.
And it was all created without digging up 1 ounce of Jane's backyard. Now that's a creative cue.